の前に私は今日通訳者になってしまいましたので、ここがおかしかったらすみません。
Hello, here to talk about the state of JavaScript, what's going on in JavaScript today and in the future.
今日 JavaScript の状態についてを喋りたいです。今の JavaScript のものと将来とか未来に行っている JavaScript についてを喋ろうと思ってます。
Just a brief bit about me. I work on the Google Chrome team, and I work on a lot of stuff there. I work on standards and actual Chrome code, and a lot of stuff. Yeah. I'm on the TC39 committee in charge of evolving the JavaScript language. I work on other specs, in particular the HTML and streams standards at the OWG. I was responsible for promises getting into JavaScript even before I joined Google and before I was officially part of any of TC39. My main side project these days is something called JS DOM, which is a re-implementation of the DOM and HTML standards and others in node.js. It's a lot of fun, and according to Twitter, there are a lot of Japanese users of JS DOM whose tweets I can't understand. But thank you if you use it. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Google Chrome の開発者です。それ以外もいろいろな HTML とWeb の技術のコミュニティの中に入っています。TC39 のコミュニティってスタンダードスペシフィケーションのメンバーですので、HTML そして JavaScript の次のバージョンのスペックとかを書いている方です。今みんなが使われているプロミスのライブラリのシステムもJavaScript に入るように頑張りました。それは Google に入る前です。最近よく頑張っているのは趣味のプロジェクトなんですけど、JS DOM です。日本の方はJS DOM を使ってるからTwitter の方で読めないツイートがたくさんありますので、なんかはい、ありがとうございます。
Alright, so today I want to talk about a number of things about JavaScript, where we've come from briefly, the history, and then what JavaScript is looking like today after the most recent round of changes. Talk a bit about some new platform innovations on the web, and also about where we're going with the language. Some of what we'll talk about will be review, and some of it will be like very short, focused snippets just to give you an idea of how something works, even if it's hard to understand from just one slide. But the idea is you can look at it later, and I'll put the slides online and dig into topics with more detail.
今日はJavaScript の歴史についてちょっと喋りたいです。そして今の JavaScript、今とかモダンの JavaScript についてと最近とか新しい、JavaScript モジュールとかコードについても喋りたいです。それともスニッペットとかで小さなコードブロックでJavaScript の将来をちょっとみんなにシェアしたいと思ってます。
Okay, so briefly looking at the history, we started with very basic things in JavaScript. This is what we thought JavaScript was good for. Only, 20 years ago, which is kind of a long time, but kind of not. You know, this is what I originally used JavaScript for. And eventually it got standardized, and we got a pretty major revision of the language in 1999, but nobody noticed, right? We were all still using it for forms and images and so on. But things got kind of serious much later with Ajax, async, which stands for asynchronous JavaScript and JSON. And then things really started picking up the pace. We got jQuery, we got V8, the first engine that could really show how fast the language could be. And in the same year, the book JS, The Good Parts, came out, which showed us that the language was not actually a terrible language. If you just ignore some features, it's pretty good. And things really, they get going. We have a ES5, we have node.js, which only 2009, that's not very long ago. And the first JS comp happened. All these MVC frameworks and content tools, Backbone and Require, which we think of as very old now, are actually only 5 years old, backed on and required. In 2012, Windows 8 came out with support for JavaScript as one of the 3 languages for building applications. So on more and more cool stuff, async.js. This year, it was only the beginning of this year that io.js happened, and then later in the year, node.js 4 happened. And we finally got a new revision of the language, ES 15. We have Microsoft Edge coming out with an entirely new browser designed to rescue us from Internet Explorer. And we have this new thing, WebAssembly, which we'll talk a little bit about at the end.
まあ、大体の歴史はみんなが分かる。
Okay. So, talking a bit about how JavaScript is used today, the biggest change that everybody knows about is that we have a new version of the language with new features that all over the place. I want to go through some of these briefly, just so you can get my take on what the most important point about each feature is. But this might be a review.
今年出た ES、2015 はやっとありますので、歴史の方でもあったんですので、フィーチャー、そしてどのフィーチャーがどうして大切かのをちょっと説明したいです。もしかしてみんなのレビューになるかもしれない。
One large category of features in ES15 is syntax features. And these aren't too interesting. They're mostly just making your code easier to read and write, which is important. But I've noted all the ones that you can use in Node.js 4 and 5 with the little N icon. So that's how I write all my code today, and we'll talk a bit more about that soon.
一つのカテゴリーはシンタックスのアップデートとか新しいシンタックスです。ノードアイコンがついてるフィーチャーは今ノードを使ったらもう自由に使えますので、今日使ってるコードは全てこのシンタックスを使ってます。
Things get more interesting when we talk about another big set of features introduced, the data structures. For the first time, we can do object-to-object mapping with fast O1 access time and sets. And we have certain hooks into the garbage collector with weak map and weak set, which are useful for these kind of special use cases where you want to keep truly private state associations between objects that are not detectable from the outside and don't cause garbage collection hang-ups like a map would, and branding for weak set. The real big change here that you will probably notice in your code is the introduction of a standardized iteration protocol. So there's a new loop for of, which works across everything. It works on arrays, of course, but also on maps and sets, which don't have index properties, but you loop across them. And you can create your own iterables of any type and use for of across them. And the idea that we've introduced this protocol into the language that everybody will share and everybody can use the same syntax is, I think, some of the most important things language design can do.
もうちょっと面白いことはデータストラクチャーについてです。やっとスピードをコンプリマイズなしのマップとマップオブジェクトマッピングとプライベート100% プライベートのバリアブルスペースビッグマップと2セットがありますので、それでいろいろな新しいことができるでしょうか。で、みんながすぐ気になると思ってるのは新しいフォーオフ、シンタックスとかパターンです。これからは何のオブジェクトタイプでも、だからオブジェクトでも配列でも何でも同じロジックでイテレーションができます。
The final category of new things in the language are what I call game changers. These are a really big deal. Generators give you the ability to create lazy sequences, but they also allow you to suspend your code at points, which gives you this cool async await type syntax, and we'll see an example of that soon. And promises, of course, my favorite feature. It's amazing that we now finally have standardized asynchronous functions in the language, or ways of calling and getting asynchronous results in the language. It's the same type of thing like iteration, where now we have an agreed upon protocol for asynchrony. Proxies are great because there's a lot of cases where you want an object to react to getting and setting or deleting or modification in a way that isn't built in already. So an example would be things like your backbone or any other MVC get or set where you want data binding to go to the DOM. Proxies will allow you to do that without using awkward method names like get, property, and set. You can just use normal JavaScript objects. Template strings are a great feature because they allow you to do cool things like generate objects from strings with interpolation. So an example here would be you're generating DOM elements, in the same style as JSX from this string, and then you can interpolate it in a URL and make sure it's correctly URL escaped, and you interpolate it in text and you make sure that the HTML gets escaped. And finally, subclassable built-ins. Previously, a lot of the classes like array, for example, were magic. You could never create something that behaved like an array, even if you tried. But now, there's been a lot of work done to make it so that you can create classes extending the built-ins. And this is great because it will allow us to do things like elements, which is a new subclass of array intended to replace node list, which is a horrible part of the DOM. But we would like to make something that's an actual array subclass, and it'll be pretty cool.
次のセクションは一番大事だと思ってます。ゲームチェンジャーですね。で、その中でそれぞれのポイントはこれからの JavaScript 開発スタイルをすごく変わると、そのおかげですごく変わると思います。ジェネレーター、一つの大事なところはジェネレーターでこれからアシンクの使い方はスタンダードシステムがあります。ジェネレーターとプロミス。もちろんプロミス開発したからプロミスはすごいでしょう。一つのアシンクのシステムはスタンダードがありますから、すべての JavaScript 開発者はこれから同じパターンで作ってるからつながりがもうすごく簡単になると思ってます。それ以外はプロクシスという新しいシステムがありますので、他のオブジェクトを似てるようにとかのファンクショナリティですので、それでコードも変わるのと、テンプレートストリングでテンプレートストリングは、今までは難しかったの一つのユースケースを直してます。ストリングをそのままで渡したらエスケーピングとか、インクルージョンとかつながりが難しかったんですので、それはテンプレートストリングをこれから使うと簡単になります。もう一つのすごく大事なところはビルトインクラスアレイオブジェクトとかがサブクラスできるようになりました。それはどうして大切かというと、ノードリストつまりドムのクラスget document by id とか get elements by tag name の結果はずっとアレイじゃなかったんです。これからアレイになるように頑張ってます。
Cool. So that's what's actually in the language. But I want to spend a few slides on how it actually plays out in the real world. It's still somewhat early, but especially because Node.js, there's been some interesting trends that we can look at.
Node.js のおかげでES2015 の本当に使ってる例がありますので、それをちょっとチェックしたいです。
So the first thing I want to show is how it affects our code style when we use all these new features. You don't have to read all the code, but this is some code from JSDOM, which only works on the latest version of Node. And so you can see a few interesting things. First, I always use const. Sometimes I use let, but I never use var anymore. And that's just an interesting change, I think. We finally get a standard class syntax, of course, so we use that. I also use arrow functions wherever possible. And here I use it in my module exports. I think it's shorter, it's cleaner. You almost never want to capture this unless it's a method. So arrow functions make that more obvious. Of course, using shorthand object literals. And then there's an interesting pattern here where I'm using symbols to store private state. And this might not be for every project, but I think we'll see variations of this. So that you can have, this way when you print an object to the console, you don't see like, underscore name, underscore public ID, underscore system ID. It's all hidden behind this one symbol. And the other thing I wanted to show on this slide is some ESLint rules to enforce some of these things. So that in my code, we always use no var, always let, always const. Always use object shorthand to keep the code clean and easy to read.
これは JS ドームのスニペットです。一番新しいノードバージョンしか動いてない。パッと見ると分かると思いますが、バールステートメントがなくなりました。そしてすべてのコードの中ではコンストかレッドしか使われてない。それ以外は矢印のメソードもよく使います。普通はthis contextは無視してもいいようなコードを開発してるから、伝統的なファンクションシンタックスが使えなくなりました。すべてのコードはESLintルールを使っているから、いろいろな、伝統的な書き方が使えなくなりました。
The other big trend, of course, is using promises for all asynchronous code instead of legacy patterns like node callbacks. And you can go even further when you have a promises ecosystem. You can start using things like this is a server. This is written with a server framework called Koa, where you can use generators and the yield keyword as a kind of await inside your server. So this is an example where I'm awaiting all of these different operations, awaiting make_dir_p, so yield make_dir_p, yield exec file, yield fs write file. It's much more clean to read than callback code or even promise code, and I really enjoyed writing this code now that I was able to use all of these features together. You can check out the full code sample online when I post the slides, but the idea is now that everything uses promises, we can use tools like Koa to write a much cleaner set of servers and so on.
この例は後でスライドと一緒に公開しますので、後で自由に読んでください。この例はyield というキーワードをよく使ってます。yield は伝統的なasync の書き方の代わりに使われてます。yield のおかげでこのコードを書くのがすごく楽しくなりました。そうですね。すべての API はこれからプロミセスを使うようになるからみんな同じように書いてこれからコードがきれいになるでしょう。
The final trend I'm seeing a lot is using Babel to go beyond ES15 and to use it for non-standard features and also for older browsers, of course. For Internet Explorer, you need it for ES15 features, but mostly Babel is used these days for things like JSX or proposals that might not get approval, like or like property initializers, or things that are very early, like decorators. So Babel is good for this type of thing, and I'm seeing a lot of it, but you have to be careful because you're not actually writing standard JavaScript when you opt in to all these Babel features.
普通の ES ロックの代わりにバブルは最近いろいろな人がバブルを新しい言語フィーチャーを試すために使われてます。JSX、Facebook のライブラリはバブルを使って開発してますし、もしかしていろいろな新しいフィーチャー、例えばこの例でデコレーターとか、プロパティイニシャライザーとかそのためにも使われてます。このようなフィーチャーは楽しい 絶対に言語を新しいフィーチャーを試すためには大切だと思っています。ただみんながそれを使うようになったらちょっと気をつけてください。スタンダード JavaScript じゃないから混乱の可能性もあるんです。
Okay, enough about the language for now. I want to show you a few cool things that are happening on the web. Even though this is a Node conference, I think the web platform is where a lot of the innovation is happening these days. Node is still catching up to the new language features, and it is working on stability and LTS and things like that. So if I'm going to show you cool things happening in JavaScript, I want to show you things from the web.
今ちょっと言語について終わりましょう。今日node.js の会議なんですけど、面白いとかクールなJavaScript は最近 Web の方で動いてますので、これからちょっとその Web の例でクール JavaScript を紹介したいです。
So the biggest reason why a lot of this cool stuff is happening on the web is because of this document, the Extensible Web Manifesto. And essentially it's saying that the browser has too much C++ magic in it, and we should give JavaScript all of that power. And I will show you a few examples of that in the next few slides.
一つのポイントはブラウザにある、力はほとんど C++ で書いてありますので、それをちょっとやめて同じ力をJavaScript に上げたいと思ってます。小さな例でこれからの力を見せたいです。
The first example is custom elements, which is, of course, explaining how you go from HTML to a DOM structure in JavaScript. And this has never been accessible or customizable by JavaScript before, but custom elements wants to make it so. What's interesting about custom elements is that there has been a spec for it for a long time, but it's been this Google-only, Chrome-only feature. So very recently, we have finally started to get agreement on what the final version of the API might look like that works in all browsers. And you can see an example here. It's actually pretty different from a lot of the Polymer demos you might see. You get to use ES6 classes and so on. So I think the API has gotten much better from all these discussions than just the Chrome version that initially shipped. So it's exciting to see this maybe finally coming to all browsers.
この例は新しいHTML とか新しい HTML エレメントを作ってるコードです。このような API はもう長い間 Chrome に入ってますが、やっと最近別のブラウザでもこういうふうに行こうと思ってますので、これからこのようなコードはもっと見えると思います。ポリメアのウェブサイトでよく似てるコードがあると思いますが、このコードは ESLog を使ってるから、ESLog の楽しいこととそのカスタムエレメントを紹介のコードです。
Service Worker is another feature that gets a lot of attention, and it's important for this conference to realize essentially what it is doing is putting a proxy server in your browser between the web page and the internet. And so you can program it much like you would a node.js server. And this library, which I found on NPM, makes that very clear. It has this express style routing, which I think is pretty cool. But this goes in your service worker. So I think that there's a lot of possibilities here for for Node developers to take their skills to the client side, and client-side developers to learn from the Node side with Service Worker. It's not just about offline or push notifications, it's also about having an entire server in your browser.
もう一つのバズワードはサービスワーカーです。この例では、トゥールボックスという NPM においてあるライブラリを使われてますが、このようなコードではブラウザに動いている、ウェブサーバーみたいなことです。ブラウザーが一つのウェブサイトをアクセスすると、それ全ての URL を表示することができます。 プロクシサーバーみたいなことです。こういう API を使うとフロントエンド開発者とサーバー開発者のつながりが動作が短くなります。どのところからフロントエンド開発するか、またはサーバーサイドの開発するの、違いが分かりにくくなるので、いいことだと思います。
The final example I want to show is how JavaScript is getting involved with CSS. And CSS has always been a very declarative, very magic thing. If you want new features, you have to build it in C++ and get it standardized and all that. But this is a new API called Custom Paint, where you register a new CSS property, right? So you can use it like this. And then that code will get called with something like a canvas that lets you completely customize how your element ends up looking, how it ends up being painted. So this is really interesting because it'll end up running as part of the paint cycle in a separate thread, a separate execution environment. And it's a level of power for front-end JavaScript in the rendering cycle that we've never been able to see before.
もう一つのことは、以前手入れないことはCSS でしたでしょう。新しい CSS プロパティはすべてC++ で開発しました。カスタムペイントというコード名なんだけど、新しい API はでは新しい CSS プロパティを追加することができます。この例ではサークルコラーという新しいプロパティを作ってカンバスみたいな API で別のスレッドでスタイルは全て変えることができます。
Okay, so I hoped you enjoyed hearing about some of the cool ways JavaScript is starting to make an impact on the front end, even at a Node.js conference. Hopefully Node.js can take some inspiration away from this fast pace of evolution and keep moving. Anyway, let's go back to talk about the language. What does the future hold for JavaScript?
ウェブの紹介は楽しかったでしょうかNode.js の会議でフロントエンドについて喋るのが、すみませんでしたが、このようなアイディアで Node.js の開発はこれからも、インスピレーションを持って新しいフィーチャーを作ってください。ではもうちょっと言語に戻りましょう。
The first most exciting thing about the future of the language is this URL. There are two magical things about it. First, the spec is on GitHub, finally, instead of being uploaded every 2 months from a Word document. Second, it is now a living standard. You just go to this URL and you see all the latest fixes, and that is the URL for ES. You do not worry about edition 6 or so on and so forth.
はい、この URL 見に行ってください。これはこれからの新しいエクマ言語のスペックです。この URL に置いてあるものはこれからのスペックになります。以前ワードドキュメントのアップロードとかそういうことはやめました。でそれ GitHub ですから誰でもプッシュできるしプッシュでpullリクエスト作れるしこれからリビングスタンダードとしてついて早く変わる可能性になりました。
This leads to my point about all this is that spec version numbers are bullshit, and you should never pay attention to them not only for ES but for all modern standards. Nobody cares what version a feature is in JavaScript. You shouldn't care about is this feature going to be in ES 15 or 16 or whatever. All that matters is where it's implemented. Is it something that is in your target environment? Is it in all the browsers you support? Things that are implemented widely will not change because we can't break the features that are used. Things that are not implemented anywhere could change. There are features from ES15 that are going to be removed because nobody has actually done them yet. And in general, you should just always look at the latest version of the spec at that URL to see what's really stable. And you should not worry about the official edition 2015 or 2016.
以前のその GitHub リンクに置いてあるスペックはバージョンナンバーがついてない。言語スペックではバージョンナンバーが必要ないと思ってます。どうしてかというと、大切なのはどの、ブラウザとかどのランタイムはそのスペックをインプレメントしてるんです。これから何かのフィーチャーを調べるときには、このスペックを読んで書いてることがステーブルだと思ってください。もしかしてなんかブラウザとか一つのランタイムでもその新しいスペックをインプレメントしてない場合では直接に生きるかもしれないですので、いつでも戻ってください。
So with that in mind, I just want to tell you about some things that are coming soon. And it doesn't matter what version they're in, it just matters that people are working on them or they're maybe already in implementations. There's only a couple of these because people still have a lot of work to do on ES15.
これからのフィーチャーをちょっと紹介したいです。どのバージョンで出てるか、関係ないでしょう。別の、ES15 でみんなが忙しいですから、これからのフィーチャーが少ないです。すみません。
The first is async await, which will give us a standard way of writing async functions. It's similar to the thing we saw with yield earlier, but it's a little prettier, and it works very nicely. It's already implemented in Edge behind a flag, and it's in Firefox nightly. So this is already happening, and this is definitely happening. I'm very excited. There's lots of conference talks about this if you want to learn more details, but this is great, finally.
前に見せたyield とよく似てる API がこれから本当にウェブにも効いてます。多分 yield がやめるかもしれないんですが、async の方がちょっと綺麗だし、もうMicrosoft Edge にはフラグつければ使えることになりましたし、Firefox でも入ってるから、これは本当に将来に来ますよ。
The other big feature is SIMD.js, which is mostly for compilers, not humans. This code is very hard to write and read, but it's about unlocking the possibilities of your hardware. Your hardware has the ability to do things 4 times as fast or 8 times as fast, and before JavaScript would not be able to do these operations, but it's exciting that now we finally can, even if it's ugly.
このコード綺麗じゃないです。私はあまり書けません。ただこの新しい SIMD.js のフィーチャーライブラリでは本当に CPU の近いメソッドを呼ぶことができます。マルティプリケーションとかサブストラクションとかアドでJavaScript 今の JavaScript より早くのオペレーションが開発することができるようになりますので、スピードとしてはすごく大切です。
And that's all that's being worked on currently. As I said, there's a lot still to do. But here are some cool things that people are still thinking about. And you might need to use a transpiler, and it might change a lot. But I think these are interesting, and you should watch out for them.
今まで喋ったのは動いているものです。誰かがそれを今開発中です。これからは、アイディア、コンセプトなんだけど、そのコンセプトは結構面白いと思ってますから、ちょっと紹介します。
One big area of interest is expanding the type system so that it can express values like 64-bit integers or points or other things. What I'm showing here is very speculative, but the idea is that you can compare things for structural equality instead of for reference equality, instead of just objects. And then there's a lot of interest from the CSS people on using literals and operator overloading and value types to get a kind of sane CSS object model API. So you can do things like add links or assign them or write a color out without using a lot of syntax.
この例はバリュータイプと言われてます。今まで全てオブジェクトだったんですが、この新しい API で比べるのがもうちょっと、Java っぽくの書き方でハイパフォーマンスとあまりシンタックスなしで書けるようなものです。CSS みたいにパーセンテージとかみたいな書き方が見えるでしょう。そのような書き方を JavaScript でもちょっと、書きやすいように新しいサービスをこれから開発になるんでしょう。
Decorators are an interesting feature spurred by a lot of front-end communities, Ember and Angular, but I think they'll be useful everywhere. The idea is that you'll be able to, at runtime, basically rewrite portions of your code in this way that looks very simple. So here's an example of a decorator that basically replaces the function do important computation with a wrapped version that records how long it takes and then outputs that to the console. So this is a good server-side example. I think this is a really neat capability, and it's getting a lot of attention because it touches so many parts of the language, classes and functions and everything.
デコレーターという新しい API、それも別の言語から取ってるんですけど、デコレーターではメソードを別のメソードとブラップすることができます。この例では例えばこのメソードはどれぐらい時間かかるのをただきれいなステートメントでスペシファイできますのでたくさんのコードがある方にはすごく役に立っているでしょう。
Cancelable promises is something I'm responsible for, and hopefully I will do soon. But when I do it, it will probably look something like this. The idea is that you can cancel any step in this chain, and whatever step you're on, it will properly cancel and propagate up the chain.
私は責任持ってますが、cancelable promise はこれから開発しますよね。このような新しい API ではどの状態でもキャンセルできるような API です。
Another interesting asynchronous thing is the idea of asynchronous iterators. The idea that you could have something that both is asynchronous, like a promise, and is a sequence, like a generator or iterator. So this example shows how that would be useful. You can do an asynchronous for loop over things and then yield out the results, while also doing asynchronous things like await or inside the function. So it's a little complicated, but it actually shows up more often than you would think. This is, for example, streams are essentially asynchronous iterators, just optimized for certain use cases, for file I/O and so on.
この API、async iterator、この例は結構複雑なんですけど、アシンクのコードで、以前イールドみたいに一つの、リストじゃなくアイテムじゃなくてリストの方でイールドを使えるシステムですね。node.js の方でストリームという API をこのような新しいシンタックスでリプレイスできるかもしれない。
Alright, and the final thing to keep an eye out for is, of course, everyone's favorite topic, module loading. Nobody knows what the module loading spec will look like, and it has been being worked on for several years, but I think maybe we can take a shortcut and only specify these three things, or four things. Script type equals module, so you can use modules in HTML, and then relative paths with // and .. and then absolute URLs. And if we only specify those things and don't try and specify all the things that they're currently working on, maybe we can finish this soon and ship it. Maybe. No promises.
これはプロミスなし。
ジョークでございました。
みんなはもう長い間一番人気なトピックはモジュールローディングですね。もう数年みんながそれになっていることはブラウザ開発者はそれについて頑張ってますが、まだスペックは決まってません。このような書き方、つまりURL を使ってこの、少ない例のがミニマムだと思ってます。もしこれでみんなが決めたらやっと公開できるようになるんじゃないかなって思ってます。
And that's mostly it, but there's probably one more thing we should talk about, which is WebAssembly.
もうほとんど終わってますが、もう一つのことは、WebAssembly ですね。これを喋った方がいいでしょう。
So WebAssembly is still very mysterious. We don't know exactly how it's going to work. We don't know exactly what it's going to be useful for. Some of the earlier designs said it would just be an easy to download and gzip and interpret version of async.js. It's essentially async.js but faster to parse. But then they're talking about adding things like threads and shared memory and maybe integration with garbage collector so you can compile Java and not just C++ and other things. And there's all this integration with the JavaScript virtual machine. It's supposed to be very tightly integrated, but there's a lot of questions. What if you try and call a JavaScript method that returns a promise or a map? Something complicated, not an integer. There's ideas for how to deal with that, but you're designing a whole new virtual machine. What I do know is that all of the major companies are spending a decent amount of engineering time on this. Google is definitely spending a lot of engineers on this, and Mozilla and Microsoft, is, from what I understand, and even Apple. So something is definitely going to happen. It's not so everybody's on board. And I think that if you read that URL, you'll find some very interesting documentation about what they're thinking. But it's still unclear.
WebAssembly って何でしょうか。よくわかる。誰もわからないんですが、ですが、すべての会社、Firefox、Microsoft、Google、Apple もそのために結構エンジニアを使っています。この GitHub の URL で今その開発者は何を頑張っているのを見ることができます。今見えてるものはなんか新しいバーチャルマシンになりますね。でその新しいバーチャルマシンはJavaScript と簡単につながることができますし、JavaScript よりデータサイズとパフォーマンスが速くになるための、アセンディング言語になるでしょう。形はまだ決まってないんですが、前に聞いてた開発者はたくさんそれについて頑張ってますので、絶対に、いつか結果出るでしょうか。
Alright, and that's it. In the end, I'm not too worried. I think JavaScript's here to stay. It's doing pretty well. ありがとうございます。